3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No. We run.
We run. Before we grab the sticks, just a quick note on the crunches. You want to have both your feet and your back up. If you cannot do both, you can set your hands down to help support you, but work to be here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The warm-up is also designed to help you get better at these things.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Push
good.
yourself.
And what about the other thing that's not the crunches?
The other thing that is not the crunches is you're going to put your knee on your leg. The goal is not to do a crunch. The goal is to stretch. And I'm very unflexible in my lower back. And the goal is not to bring your head up and do it. It's to come up here.
I never knew that. Yeah, that was.
And I don't think that's been gone over in this class.
I was wondering about that one.
And my lower back.
To the right side or to the left?
Very not flexible.
Yeah, it's about being flat and bringing everything to you. So it is a crunch in a sort because it's going to use especially those lower abdominals because you have to lift that, especially as you extend out. So you're extending out straight, right? So you've got here, this is to incorporate a stretch with it, but really it's no different than being here, right? So incorporating the stretch as this comes in, using the abs to lift and pull in. So I'm trying to bring everything to your chest. And ideally holding it for a second. And so you should get a bit of a stretch here and you should get abs here. And then obviously we do it twice so that we can do both sides.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Jiu-jitsu warm-up? I'm very good jiu-jitsu kind of warm-up.
It's funny we don't do it in jiu-jitsu. No kidding. No, that was just a thing. So I mean, the warm-up itself, the codified warm-up that we do every class, exists for two reasons. One, it is it's codified on purpose so that it can become the first thing that people become comfortable with, right? It's your first act of leadership is leading the warm-up. The more that changes all the time, the harder it is to feel confident stepping up in front of a class you've never done anything with before and then lead. So by having a set, we do these things every time to warm up, it gives the first level of confidence that a student gets to develop as they start their step into leadership. And that might be just a couple weeks into their training, right? It's always a part. The other thing is, all of it is from the warm-up design that I went with, is building this idea from toes to head, joint lubrication, right? So you start by finding your balance, just be able to stand up, and then from there, right, then you're working your knees and your ankles and a little bit of your hips. Then you're coming up, you're back to working your balance, but you're also working, this is abduction, and you're hoping to come up and to open as far as you can, not turn with it, but allow this to open and split the hips as much as you can. You can come in. And then reversing it, right? Ideally without ever having set your foot down, so you're still working that balance and managing that change when you were going this way, and then suddenly going back the other way. There's a level of balance control that has to take place for that, right? Then you switch and you do the other side. As you work, now we're up to the hips, right? So you've got your hips. In this class, we have the 4-count hula style, right? Where you're walking that and then walking the circle. So you start with, I like to start with the idea of trunk control. So starts with this, so that you're isolating that separate from your back. So you're working lower spine mobility, kind of that sacrum lumbar area. Then you start to smooth it out. Again, trying not to move everything else. Then making it bigger to start to work different areas of the body. Making it bigger is about being able to let that stretch down into your legs, let that stretch out into your shoulders, that kind of stuff. So you work that, right? Then from here, we're coming through and we're working our way up. So we went ankles, right? We talked a little bit, I didn't really talk about it, so I will talk about it. The balance is moving my center until my heels come up, moving my center until my toes come up, right? Just starting, not this and not, you get a lot of people to do this. This is a different skill and arguably not one that's loosening things, it's tightening things, right? I'm tightening my calves to do this. So instead, just moving and being comfortable moving, and maybe I can go to a corner instead of, maybe I can kind of move into a circle, right, instead of just forward and back. Just getting comfortable with, really what I'm learning to do is move my center, which is an important thing. So then we went ankles, knees, hips, right, we get up here. Then from here we start just rotation, starting to give the spine some movement. As we come to that, then going into the shoulder. I always go forward first myself, and thusly you do also because it's my warm-up and you do it. But forward first, it's good to get that shoulder moving, and then I'll switch into the other shoulder. I like to add the added element of timing, right? You could just go and this, but I like to get this moving and then follow that energy and just pass it into the other arm. And then there becomes a moment where it pauses and it goes back. And I like to go backwards second because opening my chest is one of the things that I really want to have happen. Rolling forward tends to curl you forward, which does not an open chest make. So then leading into here to get that open chest, working both, and then working into the elbows, right? And then into the wrists, then into the fingers. All of this is just moving things so far. We're not building strength, we're not doing anything like that. We're just getting all parts of our body moving, which is why I tend to tell people this should happen quickly, and usually not reps, but a count of 8. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm on. Trying to divorce myself from the idea of 1, 2, right? It's counting. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. If I'm going kind of fast, I might get like 16, 20 of them done. You know, if I'm going slow, I might only get, 5. It's about 8 seconds, not about 8 repetitions of things, right? And then 8 was just chosen because it's a lucky number in Japanese. So for the karate, it's, Hanshi liked when things were in 8s. Then from here, now we work into strength, which is the extensors specifically. So we get into this situation. This is not about closing your hands. And this also comes from the karate, but it comes from the kali too, when we're constantly gripping, right? So if I'm punching, I'm constantly gripping. If I'm holding the stick, I'm constantly gripping, which means I'm always using my flexors. And if I'm going to be doing that all class, then the thing I need to warm up is my extensors, because they're not going to be getting it, right? So I opening. It looks like closing because it's the same motion, right? But I'm relaxed for this, intentional with this, yeah? And then that, if they both work the way they're supposed to, if you open your hands and you relax, they kind of go about halfway, and that's because you've got 50-50 extensor. If you're relaxed, your hands are way closed, that generally means your flexors are overworked by comparison to your extensor. If relaxed, your hands are farther open, then you probably work these more, right? So that's that situation. Then shaking it out, because you are working muscle, so it's good to kind of shake that out. And there's obviously different, sometimes flat, sometimes here, sometimes open, kind of working it out, going through here. So we've worked down and up. Now we've got into the neck, right? So start simple, side to side. The spine doesn't like when you do 2 things at once. It doesn't like to be twisted and bent at the same time. So working forward and back. Side to side, right? All of its actuations, just getting through all of that. And then adding your circles. What you don't want to do is be twisting and circling, right? Or that's the thing that your spine doesn't like. So your circles become separate, and then you run back the other way. And so there's kind of just getting everything moving. The warm-up designed specifically just to have you moved everything? Have you lubricated all your joints before you go and put them under stress, right? Then we have a little bit of a conditioning part of it, so jumping into the push-ups. And if I'm forgetting things because I'm talking, I could. But so if I forget something, let me know. But push-ups, crunches, push-ups, back to what we just talked about, that kind of reverse crunch. It's kind of a sciatic stretch. It's getting that kind of that IT band and that kind of stuff. Not the IT band with the muscles underneath it. And kind of stretching through there, then back to push-ups and the other side. The thing about the push-ups is what I want is hands are shoulder, and then if you watch my elbow, I've got different ways, all right? I can just manipulate this rotation here. I want to rotate these elbows under and drop with my elbows right next to my body. It's kind of a tricep push-up because that's the muscle that's going to actuate, right? And that's why I like it. For jiu-jitsu, I like them because you're pushing someone off of you, right? You need to be able to create structure and push someone off of you. From karate, it's for the extension. Triceps are what you use to punch, right? For here, tricep is what you're using to extend your strike. So the triceps are an incredibly important muscle. It's not that I think that these push-ups are bad, they just work different muscles, and I like, because everybody does those, in here I want people working those triceps. Also forces you to get used to having your hands in this position, which is a good place to have your hands. So you are strong here. If you're always working your push-ups here, this is where you're strong. That's where I want to be strong, right? So sounds pretty good. Working through that, then prior to stretching, we do a little bit of stretching prior to stretching, warm some things up. And that's why start with just moving, right? So just a little bit of movement, then kind of hip rotation, right? So I'm kind of working the legs and kind of getting internal, external rotation of the hips. Okay, so side to side, then get that little bit more of a run, then work into high knees, right? You can work into butt kickers, you can work into that kind of stuff, working into the jumping jacks. working into level jumping jacks, working that base here, working front and back, just get a little coordination. All just kind of getting your heart rate up, getting body warm. Then going into stretching. Stretching, starting in the center. We'll do some more push-ups, but they're not push-ups because I'm not lifting. I'm setting my elbows down. Because it's in my center, there's not really a push, there's no exertion. It's not this, right? That you'll see people do. That's a good way to do a push-up. It's kind of an assisted push-up. I take the weight off by doing this, right? That's not what it's about. It's kind of that whole, if I'm here and doing my stretch, right? Especially with a partner. It's that. I'm just using gravity to do it instead. So I'm folding into my hips to continue that stretch. Then working into the side, back into the other side. Sometimes you might go in the middle and do some more of those push-ups before you go to the next side, right? But kind of working into that. And then one of the most important things in my mind, because of all the other things we do, is getting into this posture, heels down, and kind of letting those hips open up. Sometimes you'll come in here and kind of help keep you from collapsing. The collapsing is about making sure you're not putting up too much force on the inside of your knees. Then, lastly, coming in and coming here. See, a lot of people, because it's easier, lean forward and roll open. But what I'm looking for is posture, right? So I'm coming here and I'm opening up and I'm trying to stay elongated. And that's not always easy, so that might just look like this, right? But the intent, the reach that I'm doing is up with a good spine. Because I want to get to where I can be here. And I'd like to be way better than this, right? I feel really good about this after a few years of working on it. But do a squat. Yeah, and you don't even worry about your elbows. Just sit, talk to me, hang out, right? You can bring your knees in like this, arms up. Let your knees kind of set. See how you can just sit, right? It's because he hasn't lost that yet. We have to work to get back to that. And that's something I want. So I like you working on it because I don't want you to lose it. Yeah?
You missed the toe touches.
The toe touches. Oh, yes.
Sorry, they were a long, long time ago.
They were a long time ago and I forgot about them. Yeah, and effectively just lengthening, right? So lengthening high, looking to feel what I want to feel is I want to feel expansion of the spine. So looking to reach. A good one that I like to do sometimes, I don't always talk about, is like I reach up and touch, like I touch this, and then I keep touching this as I set my feet down, right? So it's like I reach up and I grab something. So here's where I can grab. Now if I raise my toes, and then I keep that, and let my toes down, then you'll feel that back stretch, right? It's all mental because you're not holding anything. There's nothing physical happening there. But your brain is going, oh, I got to stay up there so my spine lengthens. Right? Then coming down, toe touch. There's different ways to approach this. The main things to think about are exhaling, because if I take a big deep breath, then that's in the way, right? So another thing that can happen is I can bend my knees, find the ground, and then extend through. And I'm looking to fold in half. And so usually if people try to keep their head up, it's really hard to do that because your spine's trying to do all of this, right? Your actual spine only has so much mobility. It can't just fold like a piece of paper. So I have to keep this down and into me in order to fold as much as I can. Then coming up, right? Come back, coming to the center, reaching to the side, and back down. Again, because the spine doesn't like to do multiple things at a time, or we shouldn't do that to it, it's bad for it, is I'm not trying to do all of that at once. So I'm not coming here and then coming to the side, because on that way there, you can dislocate things and kind of, you can put things out. So that's why always to the center, then isolating one actuation. I'm going to the side, right? I'm going to the side. I'm going to the back. Never halfway in between, where it's trying to do two things and you can put your back under an improper load, and especially if you have back issues like I do, you hit that spot once and then you might just go down, right? And now you're spending a couple weeks trying to come back from it. So you isolate and let that strength build on its own. What else did I forget? Anything?
That was everything.
Okay.
That
Good.
was the only thing.
Well, there you go. Now you have an understanding of the warm-up that I built and why we do it. And then I also have a strong feeling that warm only happens if you don't take your time, right? There's a level of cardiovascular, there's a level of all of that has to take place. So if I go and take long pauses between things, then I'm letting the body cool or maintain a level of coolness. So especially that second half, after we've moved everything, it's trying to go, go, go. The whole thing, I mean, if you map it out, 8 seconds per thing, and I do the same thing, so things that are really short, you know, so this I might do 4 and 4, 4 and 4, so it's a total of 16, right? But everything is getting, hey, you just go math that out and it's only a few minutes. The warm-up should really, that warm-up should be a few minutes and you're done. You know, no more than like 6 or 7. And that's ideal. That's maintained. You didn't take a break after you started getting your heart rate up. You keep your heart rate up as you continue to go and you kind of cool down into your stretch a little bit. And you've kind of moved from joint to joint to joint, which helps make sure that there's not a disconnect between, you know, when I'm moving my shoulder and then suddenly I'm moving my elbow. Well, what I don't want to do is go, right? I want to allow my shoulder to move too. Most movements are interacting with a chain, not a single thing. And so as you continue to loosen, you're working an entire chain of things. So if I'm working my wrist, I'm allowing this whole thing to move a bit, not, right? I need enough of this to happen. I've got to think, can I work to the extent of my mobility, my range of motion? But I don't want to lock it out to where it's the only thing doing it. There's times to do that, there's reasons to do that. But that's not what I'm looking at. I'm trying to get my whole body moving together as a unit. Maybe?
Maybe it's the way you fell into that.
Huh?
You were doing the first thing. Maybe it's the way you fell into that. Lift weight jiu-jitsu.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if I go to the ground, I just do a break fall to get to the ground. Yeah. If I could just squat all the way down and sit, but I can't because there's just a last little gap before I... Yes.
When you're doing your stretches, the point is to try and increase the amount that you can stretch every time.
Yeah.
Within reason, like don't go, today I'm going to do the splits, even though yesterday I was at least 12 inches away from it.
Yeah, you don't push too hard. And ideally, and that's why I like to make sure that things have repetition. There's a point of holding things. But the problem is I don't have time for that shit. Okay? You do on your own time. I encourage it. If you're stretching for flexibility, you know, the old gym rule of thumb was 30 seconds. That's been proven to be about 2.5 minutes too short. You need at least 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes for it to be worthwhile. So you want to get into trying to get your splits or trying to get something like that. You're not holding it for 30 seconds. You're trying to hold it for much longer because your body instinctively tries to protect itself. It goes, you're putting me out of where I'm comfortable being. And so, you know, when you go, if you do that, you can feel as you come in, everything tries to tighten up and then you got to relax. And you might even have to think, okay, I need to relax my toes, relax my heels, relax my calves, my quads, and then, okay, I can go a little bit more. Same thing when you're coming forward. As you come forward, this will tighten up to do it. Part of that in relation to the fact that it is muscles that do movement, right? And so as we're doing this, well, if I can go this far, well, this is a brick now. Then I got to go, okay, so I can get maybe here, right? So we got right here. So now I need to relax this. I need to relax this, relax this. So you can watch it. So you watch it. You can see it visually relax. And now I can go further until it does it again, right? So ideally, over the course of 3 to 5 minutes, you're doing that, giving it time to get comfortable with the fact that it's not in danger. I don't know if that's true or not. That's how my brain works with it is. It did that to protect itself. So I need to hold it long enough for it to realize that it's not in danger and release itself, and then I can go a little further until I hit that next threshold, and then hold that until it goes, okay, I'm not in danger, and lets me go again, right? That may or may not be what the actual function is, but that's how my brain wants to think about it. And that is what happens. Well, for the warm-up, if we did everything for 3 to 5 minutes, we'd get done with the warm-up and you'd go home. So huge increases of range of motion, flexibility, and that kind of stuff is on you, because it takes time that you don't need a second person for most of it. So why use partner time for that? Does that make sense? So I just want to get moving, but she's right. Each time, if I do 3 reps of coming down, up, and going, then I'm trying to get at least a little bit more, even if it's just a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch more, right? And that always depends. A 1/4 inch at my shoulders is different than a 1/4 inch at my hips when I'm leaning, right? But each of those, a little bit more than last time. If I'm doing my head turn, okay, I got to here, can I go a little further, right? Every little bit helps. And you chain that together. And then you do class, which incorporates, all the movements that we do have some level of something of that. They're either flexing or extending all the time. So if I'm doing next, I go do parada. We were working shoulders, and now we go do parada. Well, feel that stretch through here. I'm continuing my stretching process into what we're doing.
Sure.
Any questions on any of that? There's the warm-up. There's the thing that we try to get through and not spend any time on, but why I think it's important, and the things that I think are important about each of the components of it.
Alright.
So let's move a stick then.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll start just here. I come to this position because this is one that I want to kind of isolate, and I'm just working on my wrist right now. Okay. For this, I specifically don't want to do this because I'm working on making my wrist more flexible. This is my compensation for a wrist that isn't flexible. So if I'm making my wrist flexible, I need to just work. If my circle is only this big, then that's how big my circle is.
So you're trying to do it all the way around then?
Yeah, so I'm just drawing a circle with the end of the stick, and I'm trying to make that circle as big as I can make it. Okay. And then what I like to do is just kind of work into chains. So from here, working that, then we might just start working kind of a figure 8. And I might go ahead and release the wrist and just do kind of a more of an open wrist roll, because it's working different parts of my hand. It's also working the grip of the inside of my palm and my thumb together. Okay. While we're down there, we could go ahead and work forward to reverse. And for that, all that's happening is rolling forward, index forward, setting that puño in there, holding it like a pencil, rolling around, and then grabbing, switching and just rewinding the whole thing. Okay. We're doing that. We might go ahead and slide down and just start working this way. Always think about what is in isolation when you're doing it. So right now, if I'm locking my elbow, then all I'm working are those 2 bones inside of my arm, side to side, and some wrist, right? And all of that attaches up here so that you'll feel it here too, right? But then maybe I want it in my shoulder, so I extend the arm so that now there's not a joint. By doing it straight, I've made sure that all of that can go into my shoulder because the elbow's not really a part of it anymore, right? I like to think of this as think of the ends. I go to this side, to this side, to this side, right? Instead of just what can I do here? And you can see with the tape, you can see that I'm kind of doing this. Well, now I want to get a lot of motion into it safely. I want to increase it over time, right? Now maybe I work the wrist. Okay, allowing the arm to move and be a part of it. Okay, maybe I kind of isolate this elbow position by trying to maintain a horizontal line with this, moving my arm over it and then under it, over, under. Since we're in the middle of the stick, we can go ahead and work fingers, right? So, coming around. I tend to allow momentum, especially with a shorter stick, I'll tend to allow momentum to happen with it, so I'll use my body to do that. I've got a few ways you can come all the way through. I'm just going index to middle to ring, and then I typically go back to index, back to thumb. So that's a full rotation, right? So it comes right back into my palm in basically the same place. You can work, if you really want to work hand dexterity, then you continue it out to your pinky and you can walk it up. I don't really find that having a super dexterous pinky is really high on my list of things I need. So I just don't do it a lot. Instead, one of the things that I like is to roll down, allow this to change directions and roll back up. So I get to the middle and I allow that circle. Okay. So rolling down, we've got from thumb to index, index to middle, middle to ring, and then on this kind of J hooks in front of my hand forward, then walks back up. Then if you're really thinking about it, you'll get ghost hand, where this hand will start kind of trying to do it with you. Happens a lot when you're working the bala song. Initially, this hand will kind of go with it. Like, what are you doing? It's because your brain's going, I'm unfamiliar with how to let one of my hands do this. That's why I was a bad drummer. Not so good. Okay. So now we can work just a little bit of this. Again, what I'm looking for is to make a connection with the stick softly and sensitively, and then as it's rolling, feel and follow and put my hand where I want it to be. So not just flipping it into my hand, which is its own thing, actually staying connected to it, but being soft enough that I'm not going like this, right? But not being so light that I just lose it and it kind of skips and hops. I want to be connected to it. So I'm feeling from the back of my hand across the hand all the way through until my grip is where it needs to be, right? I'm finding the center of balance with the weapon. I know where that is based on feel. This is kind of the thing that's happening when we're doing this. And that's how you choose. I could come here and I could have this here, or I could come here and have my hand where I want it to be. Right? But that same sensitivity comes in place when I start having contact with him, and now I can find where I need to be without. So it's just that softness, that sensitivity that we're building, right? Okay. Now we'll go ahead and we'll roll up and under. This is good for getting that. I like to stay tight with it, right? So I could do it here, and sometimes I'll pause and extend the arm to where I've got this 90 degree, and I'll allow this to rotate. Now I'm not yanking on this, okay? I'm urging my hand, I'm encouraging it to move backwards, and I'm letting this be the point that it does it, right? This pull is as much a part of it as this is, if not more so. If I just yank on it, that's how you tear things, right? So I want to yearn back and allow that to happen. The other thing that's doing is training my body to use the muscles that it takes to do that on its own, rather than this muscle doing it for it, right? So that's just good sometimes to kind of pause and kind of let that go. But realistically, what I'm looking at doing is changing my weapon, which is why I keep it close to me. I tend to stay in tight, because doing it big is not a very combative thing to do. Right, so we stay in tight. Now we can reverse it. Each time recognizing the slash that takes place. I can accentuate that, or I can just know that it's there and make sure that my hand is in a good alignment for it and not shortchanging it, right? So that my hand is following the correct path, even if I'm not adding energy to it. Okay. We can work up the spine, start to get that shoulder. Sometimes you kind of pause and allow that. What I'll take this and just lift it straight up. Oh. Allow that to go. I have notoriously tight shoulders, so this one always feels really good, and I could do it for like half an hour, but you guys don't have time for that. Okay.
I might have time for
And we can reverse and go back the other way. Things of note that you find over time is that we think that if we do this, we can get to it better, but what happens is then my stick stays away from my back. So I need good posture to allow that to get there. So if I tuck my head, I literally pull all of this away, and the stick points out, and then I wonder why I can never get to it. Right? So we keep good posture. In fact, maybe even accentuate the posture if you really need to get it to that hand. Find the ponytail. You're just training to be able to keep things in your ponytails. Like, got it. I practice this motion all the time. Continuing with the shoulder, this is more coordination, momentum, weapon discovery, like tool discovery, and shoulder mobility, and fun is just this, right? Making sure that you kind of see you're spending time, making sure that you kind of start to understand how the weapon moves. Where am I sending the energy? So to show just for a second, if I send the energy here up through this, then it moves pretty straight. If I send it to the middle, it does this, right? So I'm learning how to, thank you, send energy into the weapon where I want it to, which is an important skill. I'm doing it by letting go, but that's also how I decide where of the weapon when I hit am I using, right? As I develop this understanding of how does energy travel. And then one that I was playing with on Monday that was fun, that you're going to fail at a lot, but just keeping fun for fun, is this switching into that reverse, right? And coming over this way. Cool. So working on catching. So not over the head, you're going over the same shoulder. You'll miss this one a lot, but it's kind of getting used to, it's just, yeah, aim away from each other. Oh. There it is. So that's what it's supposed to look like, is that right there, right? Oh, where it just drops right into your hand. Then for fun, the one that I have wanted to get good at that works better with a longer weapon is you see people that do a lot of the staff movements, is where they'll do this one, where they'll just send it, they'll come into here and then send it into that hand, right? So you're, and it's going there. It's difficult with a short stick.
I really don't feel like putting my hand in.
I continue to play with that because it requires a level of understanding of momentum and energy, because it's really easy to miss. If this doesn't compensate, when you do this, all you're doing is going, it's there, and putting your hand out and grabbing it, right? So it still requires some timing and some ability to get around your body, but then you're going, I choose now. This is, can I accurately send energy into the weapon to put it here? And trying to find, can that happen? And so I play with it just because I want to see if I can connect that idea of I send this much and it moves right where it's supposed to the right way, right? I find that is fascinating to me. Not combative at all, right? But there are things, because, you know, we can look at, so I can come in here and go like this to Matt, and that becomes a level of understanding where my weapon will go if I let go of it, right? Which translates, where do we use that skill? Who's going to answer to where we use that skill? Understanding when where the energy will take the weapon when I release it.
Potential disarm?
Potential disarm? Talk about that.
I think it's all arc, right? So if I'm not throwing it, I'm still holding on to it. Like I'm still sending it.
Still sending, right? Okay, good. Good. Talk more about that.
I don't know if you have a weapon, you might not want it to go into something or somebody.
Bingo. Where's it going to go if I let go of it, right? If he comes in and goes and I come in and I say, okay, I've got this, and I know that this disarm is going, I can send it up, right? Or, go ahead, again. We come in here and I go, I send it to Gage. So, but you see, I mean, that's you get to choose those things. So to me, these things where we're releasing the weapon, they don't seem combative, but principles are combative.
That also is helpful if you did not want to send it into Gage.
Bingo.
Because Gage is...
Where do you want it to go? Where do you want it to go?
Potentially stab the small child.
Yep.
He looked like a combatant to me.
I saw these guys cohorting.
He looks violent from this distance.
I've seen these two together. I think they were in cahoots. Then also putting that idea into where does my hand end up after. So now if I send, maybe I send the weapon into him, right? And that also puts my hands in places. I think if I release this, if I come in here and I send it to Gage, where did my hand go? Out and away. So I was working with this guy and now my hand's way over here. So my follow-up motion is now having to deal with bringing this back. Whereas that, where I come in here, I come in and I send it into him, Well, the weapon is gone, but I'm still connected to what's happening with him. So these are thoughts and understandings that come from the principles of movement that we're doing, right? And sometimes just fun ways to express them. Yeah? Or really good ways to buy a new TV.
Over your back.
Yeah, I think...
Like a good distraction. Oh my God, and then you run away.
Take this.
That's why they say the bala song was so effective, is because it would come out, and it comes out in motion, and it actually just literally takes longer for the brain to process what it is. They proved that also with pistols and revolvers. You know, you get the old gunslinger who would curl it out while he's coming. It's kind of the spinning motion, and they proved that part of the accuracy or the ability to be successful came from the fact that it took the person being shot at longer to process that that's what was happening. Where someone goes, then they're immediately, I know what's happening. But when it's whoosh, they're going, I don't know what, oh God, it's done. Yeah, so the bala song kind of had that same idea. You kind of come out, and that's some of these motions, you know, they're not combative, but they change the idea of when something's happening or where something's happening. Yeah, exactly. Breaking the OODA loop.
On the other person.
And recognizing that, so I can roll the weapon, right? And the punya rolls around my wrist. Or I can roll my arm around that space. So I can roll back to here, or I can roll up to here, right? And it just chooses how do I interact with the movement of the weapon. And so if I'm in and rolling up, right, it changes, the level changes. You feel this and you're like, okay, that's fine, and now I'm up here. Same things go if my intent is to thrust, then rolling up is generally not what you want to choose, right? Because you're more likely to come this way. Whereas this sets down, so the energy that comes in is kind of locked in place. And so you kind of feel where can I effectively apply force when I'm moving, right? Maybe? We warm now?
No.
We tired of hearing things?
No, sir.
I'm hearing things, but I'm not one.
Tell us more things, sir.
All right, so I wanna play a little bit more with the left hand like we were on Monday. So here is the drill we're gonna do. We're just gonna start. We'll start with the cinco teros, and I guess I can grab a camera for this, and also find out. I apologize. I don't have any idea how much of any of that got recorded. So I was like, oh, that'll be cool. There'll be all kinds of like recordings of whatever we just talked about. Yeah, that didn't happen.
I thought it was on.
It was too. There's some sort of caution sign, and now the recording thing's not doing stuff. I don't know what happened.
That camera just keeps
Let's
getting
run it
bigger.
back. Let's run it back.
Every time I see it, it just like has a front.
Yeah, there's a couple
It just keeps forwarding.
there's a couple more things bound to happen to it very soon.
Looks like in a few years, it's just going to be a giant, literally just
I mean, I have talked myself out of like the full-on shoulder rig where you just set it on your shoulder and have the handles and just kind of like, I've talked myself out of that a few times.
And you're like, hey.
It's like a turret.
I'm waiting until yeah, exactly. It's this big and just a turret that you roll in.
Yeah, you just roll it in and then you can move
But
it
it's
all
still
around.
like that tiny camera in the middle of it all, right?
All right, so disappointed that I have no idea how much of that was useful, but so she is going to feed cinco teros with her right hand, and then she's going to feed cinco teros with her left hand.
Oh, no.
I am going to deal with both of them, sagang sagawas, from the outside every time. Okay? So we'll come in this way just a little bit, and then we'll kind of go. So in this case, because she's on that side, I'm going to start by dealing with it. I told you I was going to be from the outside here, so I'm here, here. Then she switches. Whoa.
Well, that arm is not used to getting hit. Every strike hurt more on
Ow! Ow! Why?
Everyone.
So details to pay attention to are the fact that it's all parada based. The parada has been teaching you for years how to change hands. So when this comes through, I deal with this, I bring it back to parada, my parada position sets, and that's my hand switch. To parada, That's my hand switch. Parada, hand switch. Parada, hand switch. I continue, she changes, I change. So we both changed on that one. And then I feed a set of 5 right, a set of 5 left, and then we just keep going. Yeah? Maybe? All right, let's try.
Having now held it, I am an advocate for that shoulder rig.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. The balance is off. I increased the battery. The battery has made it rear heavy now. What's happening? Get out of here.
Get any of it?
Got some of it. I guess it depends on how long I was talking.
Quite a while, I think.
Because it only recorded 37 minutes. Which it was longer than that, but I don't think it was terribly longer. Oh, hey, on the upside, audibly, my microphone recorded all of it.
So we got the podcast.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I'll just have it talking over just like random footage of what's happening in the class.
Now you can go back and record it just like you doing stuff, and then like have the audio in the background.
Yeah, there have been, on more than one occasion, I've gone back to these cameras and just pulled them. Like, it looks bad, it's not good quality, but I'm like, there's footage
Are these
of it.
on?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So when you turn
They just write over themselves. So basically, I can go back if something happens, like somebody gets hurt, I need an insurance claim or something, I can run to it. But over a period of time, then they just start writing over. So if I think of it fast enough, I can go grab it and be like, oh, so like this, I can go, okay, let's go snag that camera's worth of the last part of that or something.
Red.
Cool.
Redundancy. I got some redundancy built in. I even turned, it turned itself back down. I was like, I even turned this place up before everybody got here to just kind of.
Freezes out.
Yeah, I set it up at like 60 before everybody got here, and I noticed that it's like, I got to 51, I'm good. My gas and electric bill is good. The heat of the participants not so good.
Are you afraid of me?
Yes.
Why?
Years and years of proof.
What? I'm not
Danger.
that scary.
I don't know that that's what was proven.
Then I'm not scary.
Except you're not doing the drill.
Oh, that's why it felt weird. Got it. I was just thinking that would feel
That's good. Now this one, yes, good. You didn't do that on the other side, but on that first motion, make sure you're getting those high paratas. Yeah. If for no other reason than just to make sure that you're working your high paratas, right? Because the rest of them are all low.
Right.
I was cheating it. I was like, this is good enough.
Yeah, you're down here and then doing the, I know why you did it, but.
But that's not what we're working.
Correct.
So I will do it better.
That's not the word I like. I like more gooder. Thanks.
I thought it was more better.
No, it's mo better. Yeah, it's more gooder or mo better. Mo better.
I mean, next time I might make it more funner. Who doesn't like more fun?
Extra McFun time.
Throw it in the jab, because why not?
To be fair, the camera is a transformer. There's one button and the whole, like half of it docks and becomes smaller.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the old version, there's a button that just slides the entire old rig out.
Yeah, it looks like when like
Now
the
I'm remembering
rocket
how it
raccoons.
started out. So you just need to keep that little camera?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you go all the way back to that little tiny camera, that camera lives in that.
It's buried somewhere in there.
And it's almost where it's going to be. There's a few more parts coming on Monday.
So in other words, she's getting bigger. I swear.
It looks like one of the things that like Rocket Raccoon has in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like tons of big guns.
Jay starts out with
I need that guy's leg.
and then it just becomes that.
I don't know.
It's important to me.
Oh, I don't think that like this. You know. Do you remember that?
You fan of Marvel?
Yeah, that transition is trying to make that transition happen quickly when this is coming in here, coming back here. It's kind of tricky.
So think about it. Try this, right? So as it's coming in, meet it, continue it into parata and come out. So as it gets to here, you don't have to wait for it to get here. Just make sure that you get there.
Yes, sir. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you so much.
Salama.
Attacking?
Yeah, the hard part is pretty soon the attacker wants to do it too, just because they're used to it. Okay, a detail. Okay, so everybody, well. Boop. Shkabom. A detail that's important, so get close for this one. The detail is as I'm switching, so we'll go ahead and we'll defend. Well, I'll just do the switch. Actually, apologies. I'm just going to do it, and I don't need a thing. So as I switch, a thing that we will often do when we first start working is this idea of just going this. Okay? That's not, I'm not throwing it into my hand. I'm not kind of opening and kind of prayer change. Right? I use this position to change it over. That's not a bad way to change sometimes, right? Do that often with a long weapon to be able to move hands past. Just open them and slide so you come here. It is a way that with a knife sometimes I'll do that is I'll set the palm in and I'll kind of roll it out into the other hand. Okay? But that's not what we're doing. So what we're doing is here, we look at our parata position. Our parata position is here. Okay? Here's my first grip. So I'm almost squeezing this hand out. Okay? So I'm connecting here, and then these hands are sequentially closing into that space. So I always have at least this grip, always. So never a space where there's no grip on the weapon. There's always at least this grip and then the hand closes, right? Or I keep both hands.
So we're constantly on the low working the fore.
I mean, this happens up here too, right?
Yeah, but when we're doing the low switch.
Yeah, effectively, yeah, the hand position of a number 4 parada is exactly what you're using versus this number 3 situation, right? The number 3 situation would switch into this and come out this way. So it would still be the same idea. This connection would happen first, this would happen next. Some other notes are the idea that if I come into 5, sometimes that continuation is reverse. So I just come to bend and I come here and I go, wow, right? Other things to know is sometimes I'm not actually changing hands. Coming into parada, I'm using this hand to move this weapon, right? I may come around and add energy. This is for heavy weapons, where to just turn around and hit takes too long because of how heavy the weapon is. Coming into here and then using this hand to push and accelerate a heavy weapon. Same as hitting something low and then using this hand to catch and return rather than waiting for that to have to use all of this energy to bring it back, allowing that hand, well, I just switched, wasn't meaning to switch, allowing that hand to push, right? To go, I need to stop and start here, which is why people always say, you know, what is all the slapping? Like you slap a lot when you're going, when you're working, and you see a lot of this. If you watch closely, it's always the same place, and it's always right here for the most part. And that's because I'm going, as soon as this gets here, and instead of letting this wrap and come all the way around, I'm saying, I need you to wrap now, right? So I'm not letting it wrap around my body, I'm letting it wrap around my hand and then continue back, which makes the distance shorter and the time quicker. Yeah, makes sense? So these slapping motions that you see people do, or at least you watch me do, is from that idea, is I'm redirecting the weapon, and then you see kind of this thing, and that's also just a counterbalancing motion, right? I need to be able to open and allow this to swing, because the next side, when it closes, this can come in and create that redirection and send it. I don't know what to do on this side, right? I can get my hand back there to do this on that stuff when the weapon's over here. Right? So that's why it looks like this, is because this becomes the counterbalance, right? It's the thing that allows to pull and send this. Does that make sense? It's no different than if I've taught you how to throw a roundhouse kick, then you learn to roundhouse this way, right? And keep that head protected. That's initial. That is initial skill, because there's so many ways to get clocked in the head when you do it. So you keep your guard up and you come through and you turn. The truth is, biomechanically, it is better to swing the arm and accelerate. Has anybody ever sat in their office chair and then just like spun themselves around without touching anything? You have to kind of like bring your hands around and then, right? Then you go watch those robots that they're working on now that kind of do those kind of things. That's the way their motion works, because that's the way motion works, right? So when you're doing this to throw your kick, that's exactly what you're doing. You're spinning your office chair. So you come through. It's just more dangerous because you're not protecting yourself. So early on, I teach cover your head, and you can throw a pretty decent kick while doing that. You just don't get as much rebound, you don't get quite as much acceleration, and you bring all of your weight into it, so the ability to change is harder. But then later, once timing is understood, then this is a great way to go, because you can add all of that energy, but you just got to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time so that it doesn't get used against you. Does that make sense? So same thing happens here as I'm working these. When I'm doing this counterbalance, where's my hand? It's living in the cut zone, right? So by doing this, I'm inviting that hand to get hit if I'm not careful, right? You can also feint that way. All right, so if I come in here and I work this and I send this out, I can also go here so that I can hit that, right? I just give him a hand to hit, and then I take it away and I hit him, right? So it's not about, thank you, it's not about the perfect technique. It's not about having an undefeatable movement. It's about knowing how movements work, knowing the amount of time it takes, the amount of energy it takes, and the setups that it takes for it to work, and then most importantly, knowing when you can do it, right? Everything that we learn has a time that it's good to do, and it's a time that it's bad to be done, right? So if I feed this hand out and go, you know, if I'm sparring with you, something like that, like, might be great to do that, especially if we're working sticks. If you got a machete and actively want to kill me, then maybe I don't just hope that I'm faster than you by baiting you and then see if I still have a hand when I'm done, right? But in general, when that hand is entering into space, it's a matter of, is that the right time to put it? And that brings us back to the conversation of the cut zone, borrow you again, and the fact that if I come through here, looking at the strike, real slow motion, as soon as I'm here, his strike, his cut zone continues to exist ahead, which means all of this is safe. I can live here, I can dance here until that starts to come back, right? So this idea, we'll swing this way, of here, coming in there is fine, but I better get rid of it on the way back. But then as soon as it's past here, coming through, I can come underneath it because this is a safe place that exists because the bad, dangerous place is still going that way, right? So hands can enter in the right places. We'll go lows right here. All of these places exist because we're just finding out where is danger and where can I be, right? I can always play it safe and just never be there, right? But if I want to start making changes happen, I've got to know where these places are that I can put my hand and be safely doing so. And you know how we learn that? By getting hit in the hands. But this is the idea, right? But that allows me to affect change because now I can work. I can put my hand in a place that it shouldn't have been able to go and do something, right? Or I can come in here where we go one, we go two. We'll just do ones and twos. We go bosh, 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 bosh. Right? See the change in time? That was this, right? So we were working just arms, arm, 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 arm. This small thing makes all of that happen. Yeah? Which is pretty cool. Which brings me into a concept of how we strike. I want you to throw a hard strike, just a number one, number something, just throw a, good. Okay, so let's see if we can make Joel strike better. Hard as you can, strike real hard. Good, again. Let's make it a 1 and 2. Okay, 1 and 2. He's already doing the thing. So, but there's another piece to this, right? A thing that happens. So now I want you to think, just set your hand on your chest like you were just starting. Okay, 1 and 2. Okay, 1, 2. 1, 2. Can we make it better? How? Add the hand back? Yeah, but no, because I just said let's get rid of that. How do we make it better without doing that? So there's muscle engaging. Slow motion. So I want you to do one fast and one slow motion. And the fast and then slow motion is so that you can see what you did and then try to reproduce it slow.
Sir.
Okay. Do you see it? Do you feel it? It's pretty darn fast. And it's pretty good. And for all intents and purposes, it's workable. It's no this, right? Like it's a good hit and a good hit. Yeah? How do we make it better? Okay, here's how. Slow motion. So do it in slow motion. And then pause when I tell you to pause. Pause. Okay? Yeah, what do you see?
Stick is too far back.
It's not about too far back because I'm about to make you make it go further back.
That movement, that's twisting the body, hip movement.
Yeah, he's got super good twisting and hip movement, right? How are you not getting hit in the head? What thing is happening that's making that not happen?
have a wrist break here that's
Yeah.
stopping it from continuing into here.
Maybe so, partially. And pausing, and I would argue that there is muscle tension here,
Yes, sir.
putting the brakes on,
Alright.
right? To make sure that it doesn't continue in, because if he stops, it's bah. Yeah? Make sense? So there is tension that exists so that that doesn't happen. So now if you choose where that goes, and you allow it to wrap the body,
Alright.
and you never create tension. You've fully engaged the connection with the body. It now has this wrapping, whipping motion, and you never had to create the tension to put the brakes on.
So,
Right? Does that make sense? Do you feel that?
yes, there's kind of keep that connection to that energy flow as opposed to stopping it here and trying to redirect it.
Yeah, trying to hold it out in space. The heavier the weapon, the harder it is.
Alright.
The heavier the weapon, the more it can just duck to your body. Right? It's about when. How do you not hit yourself painfully with an nunchaku? You hit yourself, yeah. And you hit yourself with which one? Right? You have this break in it, and then you've got the one. So you use the one that's in your hand, touches your body, the other one continues to wrap around. If I stop it, the loose one swings around and hits. Right? So I actually come in, create connection, let it wrap, and then send it. Right? So that is how you do. So the natural progression would be first people go like this. And they're just out here and it's 100% arm. They're never back. They're never back. So it's all arm, 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 right? Then they start learning, okay, well, I can come all the way back here and use my shoulders and my hips to throw the weapon, and then I break and do this. And then it's 50% right. So now I'm coming here and I'm using this connection of locking this piece in place, allowing this to kind of fold where it can fold to, and then connect with the rest of the body that allows it to be good. And then all of the muscle and arm becomes for the return. Then we move into that, where it comes through and you use the body to be the thing that redirects it for you. So you send it with this hip. So here you were connected with this hip and shoulder. Now you're connected with this hip and shoulder. Right? Does that make sense? Sure. Then back to what you're already capable of doing, which is then attaching it to this, which is the same thing, just shortened. Right? It's no different than this. It's just doing it sooner. Right? And I have to have some level of understanding of the tool, because if I do that with nunchaku, then there's a moment where that goes, right? So you have to know where that weapon's going. I can still do it. I just have to make sure that that line where it maybe taps me here, I have to know where it's going to go, right? Or make sure there's enough energy that I can continue to add as that pull comes in. So adding just extra information for extra information's sake, because apparently I'm just on one of those today. If I turn and send the forward, will you grab me an nunchaku from the office, please? If I turn and send that forward, there's a certain amount of energy. And when she grabs an nunchaku, we'll talk about that. I'll show it, I'll demonstrate it. But where you engage the chain is important. So if you're not letting this fully touch, you need to at least let this touch, right? Because there's the connection that brings the body back into play. And then this just becomes a light, right? Danke. Thank you. So working with these, same ideas. We look back into our things that we were working before, all of the warm-up kind of stuff. Same idea. I come here and I come here. If I want to hit really hard and I go like this with my arm, then this thing goes, bah, done. Or I go, and I just plant this. I put this where I want it to go. Right? This sets here, then this chain continues. Right? I keep it safe by knowing where it goes. I don't keep it safe by making it safer. I keep it safe by knowing how it works and using that. Adding in this idea, if I come here, right? You see that? It's not so good. That's the difference of bringing forward, flat, forward. I can still do it this way. And it's about the pull. I need to make sure that this stays straight by doing that.
We're doing the second one. Were you also putting your hand on your knee? So I feel like the first one you showed, you were on the nunchaku. And then on the second one where you were pushing it down, you were pushing your knee.
I was living here It might have looked, I never went to the nunchaku, but I did get pretty close because I go to the hand, maybe. Or I'll watch the video and be like, nope, she was right, I did some weird thing. Or I might have just been trying to show it, I don't know. I don't know. Wasn't here for that.
That's why I asked.
But that's the difference, is pulling down through rather than out through, right? If I go out through, then I send this in a hard corner. If I go down through, the whole thing continues to work as one motion, right? So this, it's not about out. If I do the same motion out, did you hear it? I heard it, I felt it, right? This thing starts to whip back. If I go really fast and get extension really quick, I might be able to just make it go, woo, right? Probably shouldn't bank on that, right? Or I make sure that the energy is the right direction so that I know where it's going to go because of the way, all those same reasons why we're working our throwing drills and all of our stuff is knowing where does that energy go when I let go, right? Here. Does that make sense? Kind of understanding. So the same thing happens when I come here. I can let this wrap and unwind off of there. There's even the ability to use a bit of the delay where as it hits, if I go too fast, then there's actually lost energy. It still works, but I'm fighting the fact that it's still trying to unwind, right? Or I delay a second, let it finish unwinding, and I let that feeling start to come and then go through. You're going to come to understand, all of the conversations we've had recently, you'll come to understand how much I pay attention to doors. So, a heavy car door. It can be easy to just grab that door and just go slam, right? Or, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't suggest anything. But if I push it a little bit and it rebounds, as it comes back, it's already in motion the direction I need it to go. There's less energy applied to closing it, right? So here, as this wraps, if I just do this and stop, it came back. So am I better to try to get it here? Or am I better to let it finish and then, as it's already going that way, add to it? Therefore, none of my energy was subtractive of the original energy. It was only additive. Maybe? Makes sense? Tracking? And then just for the sake of conversation, knowing how the energy works, right? When we were looking at the stick and the ability to spin the stick versus throw the stick, right? Where I can send the energy to the tip of the stick and it throws straight versus sending it like this. Then there's also the ability to add to that energy. That becomes important here. So when I swing this hard, I can allow it to hit my body to keep myself safe by controlling this, right? So it wraps and it continues. And that's fine. It's not the best feeling, but it's not dangerous per se, right? It's a broad and dispersed energy. Or, right as it gets to the end, I can push along the bias of this forward and send the energy that way. So I'm going to try to angle, hopefully this kind of catches right. If I do the first one, it wraps and you see it hit, right? It's fine, it's hitting my body and it's wrapping around, but it's hitting. Or at the very last part, the thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to go, ugh. Yeah? Okay. Okay, see how it changes all of that. So I never actually had to hit my body to take all of that energy out. Still touches, but there's actually significantly less even on its impact. And I never had to touch my body anymore because I allowed it to continue its energy forward rather than sideways. Information for information's sake. What you do with this, how you process and understand it, and how you put it into use is for you to do. But now you have some thoughts on how this kind of energy and momentum and that kind of stuff works, how it keeps you safe, and especially when we're talking about the stick as we just were, how you can allow yourself to not fight yourself. As I go to hit and I put on the brakes to do this, I've slowed it down, I've taken some energy off. Or I allow this, I find the parada so that I could just use it wrapping around my body to do the work instead. And then when I need it to be faster or closer to you, I can use a different thing. I mean, the truth is, borrow you, borrow you. We're getting Hollywood now. But the physics will work, so you're here. And you can stay there. We'll try to do it with the camera, right? So if dealing, we're not going to choreograph anything. But so here's the idea. I come 1, I come 2, right? So I come this, I come that. Or I come this, I come that. So I can use his body to send this energy out too, right? It doesn't have to be me. It just has to be something that interrupts the flow, allows the wrap, and it continues. So I can hit. This will not be useful here. So maybe I go, whoa, right? And then I'm here. But instead of going here, just allow that to hit and bounce, right? Not unlike when we come to the ground. That's a good way to smash an instep. But sometimes it's just to get that energy bouncing back up and send it, right? So sometimes I hit the ground in order to come back up because doing this takes too long. Maybe there's a lot of stuff. We're out of time. On the button, nailed it. So this was a lecture, theory-heavy avatar state time class today. But hopefully it was useful. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. And yeah, take it, put it into use. All of the stuff that we talked about today is really stuff that connects with everything else that you're doing. So now it's about putting it into play with all of the things that you do. We talked about body mechanics, energy, momentum, velocity, mass, right? I didn't always use all those words, but they were there. We were talking about that. So all of those things took place. How you execute them, how you put them into play, and how you allow your body tension, relaxation, flexion, extension, all of these things are a part of how this works. Yeah? So we put it all together and we make it into something beautiful. Okay? Now, how do you do that? How do you take that, take all of this stuff in this art and make it something that you understand and can do? Huh? You got to play with it. It's the best way to play with it. To fail doing it. I like that. That's very true. If you had to pick a drill.
Partners or just solo?
I'm just asking you.
You could start solo and work the ones and twos. So you're working the one and you're wrapping it and sending it. So you wrap and send. Then you work that while you're watching TV.
Yeah, so we can call that working in isolation. You can isolate a specific skill, and you can isolate it into a specific drill, and then work that in isolation, right? How do you make it just a part of you, always, forever?
Do it constantly, move constantly, do it every time you open a door, a car door,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing.
Do it until you
Unsuspecting people at work.
I don't recommend using that by opening the car door without paying attention to the wind.
Or the nearness of other cars. Yeah, if you need a drill for it, that's what Carranza is for. Carranza is the exploration of your skill. It is how you take and put all those things into play. You can work and move. You can take your ones and twos and go, maybe I go ones and twos, and then maybe I find, can I connect to my body while I do that? Can I use my hand to do it, right? So maybe I make sure that my energy, we talked about rolling and changing directions, so that roll and change directions can be a play. We work here, so this, now I try it on the other side, maybe it comes up this way, right? This is the purpose of Carranza. Carranza is to take and allow you to, isolation is important. Every now and again we isolate and we work a skill and we develop it. Carranza answers the question, what should I isolate? You move and you train, and then you find the thing that doesn't quite feel right. You isolate it till you can make it feel right. You find the thing that feels really good, but you don't know why. You isolate it until you understand it, right? So the isolation comes from determining where you need that and then doing it. I can put something into isolation that I'm already really good at, and I don't know, right, wrong, or otherwise, I don't like to watch the same movie twice. Okay? Typically because partially, especially if I do it right away, I remember all the movies, so I get really bored, ADD kicks in, and I'm gone. But the other part is because in this life, I only have so many hours of my time. There is a finite amount. I don't know the amount. I don't get to know that. But there will come a time when I'm out of them. I don't have them anymore, right? And so, to me, forever, the idea of watching movies used to be an hour and a half. So we'll just use an hour and a half. It's not always true anymore. But using an hour and a half, if I go watch that movie again, that's an hour and a half that I could have spent doing something that I've never done before. Maybe just watching a different movie I've never seen before, right? It's time spent. So I can isolate a skill that I'm already good at and just rep it. And then that time has been spent never getting to do something I've never done before, right? So I've subtracted from the time that I have available to continue to grow elsewhere. Sometimes you need it. You need to rep the things that are important to you. But there's a balance, and if you want to expand, and you don't have to, there is reductionist methods. There's ways to go smaller, and that's fine. If you want to expand what you know, expand what you understand, expand what you're capable of, then at some point you have to stop doing what you already can do and do the things that you can't do yet, and put the time into those so that you can become better and do that expansion. Does that make sense? And so it's important to explore and determine the things that you do a lot. Carranza will show you that as well. It will show you what you always do. It will show you what you never do. It will show you what you do when you are blanking out and you're filling space before you get to something else. You might have this kind of thing that you always do just to kind of when you check out and you're thinking too much and you're just doing something, whatever that habit is. You'll see all of those things. You'll see them while you do it, but you will especially see them if you film yourself and then watch yourself. And just look, what do I do? Answer the question. If you truly get lost while you're doing Carranza, which you should, then you won't remember what you did. Not until those moments happen where you're like, oh, what was that? Try that again. And then your brain's back on. But there will be times when you're not, and if you don't watch it later, you'll never actually know what you did. Did that for 10 minutes. I don't know. Recently I recorded some Carranza and I didn't realize how long I was doing it because I wasn't thinking about that. I did it for like 20 minutes. But I didn't think about that. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of tired. Like I probably did that for like at least 10. And I was like, oh, time has really gone by. But because of that, if I didn't realize how much time I had spent, then I also didn't realize what I did during that time. There's no way that I can recall from the beginning everything that took place, right? So film it. We all got cool phones and webcams and stuff. Now you just film it, watch it again. And we will be doing some of that as well, because it's also important. Did it turn off?
No, was I supposed to be going during all of that?
Did any of you want that recorded? Ben decided nobody gets it. So.
I mean, no, we get it. No one else gets it.
Gone.
All right.
Yeah, anyway.
I want it. Go
Anyway.
find it.
It's important. I want people to be able to also see the growth that they go through over time. And so I mentioned recently that I'm going to be filming Carranza and that's not optional for anybody of rank, that we're going to do it, we're going to film it. It is optional and available for anybody not of rank, and the purpose of that is to create a waypoint, a slice of time where you can see what you looked like at that point, or get a chance to see each other. What do each other do, and be inspired by each other, right? So that's coming. I haven't put a day on it, but I hope that you spend time practicing your Carranza and putting that energy into yourself to find you.
Right. So shouldn't that be that point though? Like you should be able to just kind of blank out and do things, right? And that's what a real battle would be like, right?
Can be. It can be if you've trained for it.
If you're super focused and you're super rigid, you're gonna probably mess up. You know?
Yep.
But should be right flow, right?
Yeah.
Should be moving constantly. And moving.
There's no routine to battle. There's
Yeah,
no routine
exactly.
to
Yep.
routine. You can't say, well, I'm gonna defeat this guy using this.
We can't
this
always
trick.
be Robert Downey Jr. and Sherlock,
Yeah.
which is amazing, and I want to, but you can't.
Slow down time.
Uh, yeah, no, it shouldn't. Yeah, it should. There's times where you need to engage, right? Sometimes you need to think about what you're doing. You just need to be actively involved with every part of it. Sometimes you need to be constantly envisioning what you're dealing with. You need to be imagining something happening and dealing with it. And sometimes you need to just not be there at all.
Well, that's like an unleashed situation, though, on a battlefield, you know, more controlled, like you're talking about earlier. You don't want to throw the stick over here and hit this guy. 'Cause you didn't have to do it this. You know? Like, it's in real situations that we really deal with in real life. A little
Yep.
more focused, but
Yeah. And there's always the phrase, your body can never go where your mind has never been.
right,
If you have not processed what that might look like, then you will struggle to put your body there when the time comes.
right.
And that's why we spend so much time on scenarios and ideas and thinking about that stuff, is because putting your mind there helps your body be ready to go there when the time comes. All right, that's all I got.
Appreciate it. Thank you.